Welcome to the Nevada Author Network, a collaboration between the Sierra Arts Foundation and Two More Books, recorded at the Depot Gallery and Bookstore in Sparks, Nevada. Each week we will interview a Nevada author and member of the Sierra Arts literary community. Our guest this week is author Ken Sutherland.
Hello everyone, this is CC and JT from the CC and JT Amateur Hour. We're here on our new podcast, the Nevada Arts Network, which we are partnering with the Sierra Arts Foundation on. And this week we will be speaking to author Ken Sutherland. We thank you for being here, Ken, and we hope that you will enjoy this episode of our new podcast.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
And we would like you to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your books.
Sure. I was in the radio business for a lot of years, and I started out as a disc jockey. And in those days when I got into radio, all the disc jockeys had these big, deep voices, and I didn't. I sounded like a teenager. Mm-hmm. And they call that a squeaker. And I was a squeaker, and that's a good reason to get fired, and I got fired a lot. And I thought, well, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to be in the radio business if I don't have the big voice? And then I noticed there were some guys who didn't have big voices who were saying clever things. I thought, oh, writing. And that actually led me into writing many years ago, although most of what I wrote were sales proposals and newscasts and a lot of commercials. Over the years, I did 40,000 commercials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a couple of them were okay.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them said hurry. But
right.
Anyway, that led me to writing. Eventually, I took a course in how to write a mystery, and I started Heartbreaker in that class. But Heartbreaker suffered from many, many, many years of career interruptions. And it would spend a long time in the bottom drawer while I was working in the broadcast business. I had to retire to finish it. But by the time I retired, all the parts were there. They were just all the different formats of Word. So I had to retype the whole thing, and it was better for that. It actually is a full-fledged novel right now, and it's available on Amazon. And it had a very good month. It had 5,000 downloads. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm rolling pretty high. And that is leading to some sales in The Hollywood Diamond Murders, which is the sequel. Are we talking about the book yet, or we want to talk about the book?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
In Heartbreaker, it's set in 1971, just a few months after the famous drug deaths of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin.
Oh, wow.
And so when a young pop star is found dead in her home, the police automatically said, oh, well, obviously it's a drug overdose. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the kind of forensics then that they have now. And so they just wrote it off. They announced it to the press that it's a drug overdose. And there was one problem, and that is that her father is a retired LAPD homicide detective. And he wasn't going to stand for that, and he flipped out and began an investigation, a big search for her missing boyfriend. He crashed through the music industry, the ultra-hip music industry of 1971, the record company, the conglomerate from Japan that's going to buy the record company, interviewed her agent and all kinds of people, and made trouble, and came to the attention of the press, and they branded him the vigilante dad. And then somebody tried to kill him, which told him that he was on the right track. So that's Heartbreaker. The whole time that he's trying to find out who killed his daughter, he's being a detective, but he's also crumbling emotionally. Mm-hmm. So the sequel is a little more lighthearted. It's Chuck Donegan is the name of our detective, and he gets involved in a cold case that goes back 15 years.
So Chuck Donegan is a character in both of these books?
Yes, and there's a third one on the way. I unfortunately named it Unfinished Business, and that seems to be a curse on the book. I may change the title so I can finish it.
So, excuse me, are any of the things that you learned working in radio and advertising included in your books?
An awful lot of the atmosphere of 1971 radio and records and that whole industry is expressed in Heartbreaker, because that's, write what you know, so I knew that. It's all fictitious, but it's it's an amalgam of people I've met and businesses that I've known. And so all the guilty parties have been renamed.
Of course.
So you've traveled the road that many independent writers have written. Plucking a chapter here, and here, and then you've sort of pulled it together. What was that the hardest part of the writing experience for you? Because there's that moment of discovery when you sit down at the keyboard and you have to, oh my gosh, I'm actually writing a book.
For me, a book starts with an idea. Wouldn't it be great if, and then I fill in the blanks, and then I have to turn the page to see what happens. And quite often I'll sit down to write and not know what happens, and I've written endless chapters that have been thrown away because they didn't fit the book. And I'm working on a book now where I got all the way to the end and realized it had serious structural problems. I now have to go take that book apart, and where I thought it would be done in March, it's going to be 6 more months before that book is complete, but it'll be something hopefully that I'm proud of by then.
So you don't really start with an outline or something, you just basically have the idea and work from that?
I have tried to do outlines. I'm jealous of people who can do outlines.
It's a challenge.
Okay, it's certainly a challenge for me, and I have never done one successfully. My idea of an outline is to start writing and say, and then put notes right in the text. And then he goes here, and then we do this, and then he does that. And that's my outline of it. It usually goes only a few pages, and then I have to do it again.
Right, that actually sounds a little bit like how you work.
Yeah, of course the technical phrase is pantser versus plotter. CC is a plotter, and she plots and plots and plots and plots, whereas it sounds like you and I are pantsers. We're writing stories that take us where the stories go, and basically, not to speak for you, but for me, when I write a book, I write a book so it's a book I want to read. And I want to read it, and I want to say, what's going to happen next, and how messed up can I make things up for the characters sometimes.
The biggest challenge for me in all 3 of these books, and the 2 that I'm working on now, is the middle. Yes. I know how it starts. I got a pretty good idea how it's going to end. Everything in the middle is just a sort of a fuzzy dark space, and but that's where the interesting stuff seems to happen. So it develops. I don't know where the muse is, but it arrives.
It is for muses.
The messy middle, I think, is what everybody refers to. But it is. So you're working on 2 books at the same time right now?
I have 2 books
in progress.
In progress. Yes. Not that I'm working on them at the same time.
Right.
And I thought I was done with one. It's actually along the lines of balance, which it's a mystery that has metaphysical or supernatural overtones, or undertones, or an undercurrent. I don't know, but it had structural problems because the whole story takes place over 26 years, and we had to deal with flashbacks, and it just all the story is there, but it doesn't work right. So I have to go back and fix that.
That is, flashbacks is the biggest thing my editors always have problems with. Is when I'm writing is. Yes, and some other people too, but flashbacks are always the challenge. Is that the hardest technical part of writing for you?
Yeah, all of these books suffered from structural problems, and I eventually figured them out. So I feel good about that. That's actually the big triumph. It's not that I wrote a book; it's that I figured out how to make it work.
Right.
And I want to mention this book, if we don't mind. Do we have time?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's Balance, the 200-year journey of Andrew Crawford. And I promise it's the most different book you'll read all year. It's about a young man who's married, getting his life started. He's pulling things together. He and his wife, who he loves very much, have a baby on the way. And then he's 25 years old. And then his psychic aunt visits. And he calls her my batty old Aunt Bonnie. And she makes she actually gives him a prophecy where she says, you will save a life, take a life, lose a life on a journey through time. Wow. And he starts what a lot of people think of as time traveling, but it turns out he's revisiting his own past lives. And he wakes up in a training unit getting ready to go to World War II in 1856 on the Oregon Trail, and in 1790 on the wrong side of the French Revolution. And there's a lot of true history in it that's merged with the fictional characters. And I had a lot of fun writing it, and I really did not have as much trouble in the middle of that one.
Wow.
That sounds like a very interesting story. Where did that idea come from?
Well, I've always been curious about past lives and reincarnation, and so that idea existed within me. But it happened when I was trying to write the Hollywood Diamond Murders, and I got this idea. So I wrote it down and I went back to work. And then, oh, well, here I could amplify that idea. Here's a little bit more about, I didn't know what to name it, but here's a little more about my reincarnation book, my past lives book. And pretty soon I had to put this book down and work on that one. And I finished it before I finished this one, and then I went back to work on that one, which somehow became easier.
That's so funny. I think probably a lot of writers would be able to relate to that. I don't know, JT and I ourselves get a lot of different ideas that sometimes interrupt what we're actually working on. So do you find it that you end up with a folder of ideas for future books?
Well, they're now electronic folders.
Right,
but
yes.
And I'll have a flash. I have half a dozen, maybe 8 short stories, partially written. And I'll get an idea. In fact, one was really stumping me on how I was going to make it work when the idea hit me of what to do, but it was right in the middle of a bunch of other work and I couldn't do it, so I took notes on it, and I will eventually get back to it.
So you also write short stories. That do you send them out to magazines and things like that?
I haven't had a lot of luck with magazines. An excerpt from Balance, from the life story of one of the middle characters, Michael, where he told the story of how he immigrated from Ireland to America, and all the discrimination that people faced in the 19th century just for being Irish. And he, that story became a self-contained short story that was published by Living Springs Press. There is a local writer that you know very well named Stephen Provo, who produced a couple of anthologies.
Right.
And my very first short story appeared in his 2023 anthology, which was called Swoop. And that was a top 3 finalist for the John Steinbeck Award.
Oh, that's great.
I didn't get the award, but I'm still glowing from the
Right.
nomination.
Oh, that's
Well,
amazing.
That's nice validation. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our time. So here's your opportunity to tell us where to get your books, your website, and things like that. Where can we find Ken?
Sure, KenSutherlandAuthor.com. And if you want to reach me, it's ken@KenSutherlandAuthor.com. That's my website. It's not a sophisticated thing. That's not what I know how to do. But it's there, and there are links to all the books. They're all available on Amazon. A couple of them are available on Barnes & Noble online. And the best way to do it is to just go to the website, click on the link, and it'll take you right there.
Excellent.
That's great. Well, thank you.
So anyway, so thank you, Ken. It's glad to finally meet you directly like this.
Thank you.
And to hear about your work and hear about your thought processes. You can find this podcast on our website at www.twomorebooks.com, and you can also go to our website at carsonhume.com. And in partnership with the Sierra Arts Foundation,
Yes.
I know I was getting there. In partnership with the Sierra Arts Foundation, you can find it at you can find links at sierraarts.org.
Yes. And we are happy to be focusing on wonderful local authors like Ken Sutherland here. So we hope you'll continue joining us for future episodes of the Nevada Author Network podcast. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Y'all take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
This has been the Nevada Author Network, a collaboration between the Sierra Arts Foundation and Two More Books. Recorded at the Depot Gallery and Bookstore in Sparks, Nevada. Thank you for joining us.